Hello, hello, hello. Good evening to those of you here in the United States on this coast. And good morning to those of you over in the Southern Hemisphere. Hey, Mippy. Good morning, love. Good to see you. I apologize for my voice. Hey, Pete, my East Coast friend there. How you doing? We got a lot to cover tonight. It is my regular Tuesday night where I do multiple cases. And damn, is there a full agenda for the night because there's a lot going on with, well, hearings that were scheduled and trials that should have started and then trials that got moved and shenanigans. And then we got plea deals and no deals and all kinds of stuff going on. So we got a pretty full plate that we're going to knock off, hopefully finish, within the hour and a half. Hey, can you guys hear me okay? Can I get a sound check? We do have a storm here in the area. So I just want to make sure that everything's coming through clear. And if I disappear, well, you know what? It's because we've got thunderstorms running through right now. It says that I have a good signal, but you know, thank you me thank you for that. It's been a rough couple of days. I've been kind of not online as much. I've been kind of taking a little bit of a break. Doing just some of the regular streams. We wrapped up the 50th law with Wrecker and put out what our next one with that's going to be with the library chats. And we've been doing the regular Tuesday. We've been doing a couple hearings, in between. We had the big deal with Kohberger. That hearing, that was wild or and very unexpected. And you know what? I think we could start with that. I do have him on the agenda too. Everything else is a little bit rank. So let's just start with that. With Kohberger, we definitely are still going to go through with sentencing. It's still scheduled for July 23rd, but I have to say there is a lot going on. The families are split on this. The Gonzalez family is very upset. Steve Gonzalez is doing interviews, and basically he put forward that he feels very disappointed in the prosecution team. He feels that they have from the start treated the families poorly. I will have to say, when I found out that they only got an email, no one actually spoke to them um, prior to all of this. I mean, I understand the prosecution has to do what they got to do, but in after years of these families going through what they did, not to actually have some consideration where a phone call could be made. I mean, you're not that damn busy. This is a big case. You've been on it for a long time. It's coming to a resolution. You could take a few moments. And I know it's uncomfortable because you feel like you're letting the families down when you're closing this. But on the other hand, and I know that people don't want to, I know that they don't want to look at it, but what we've seen recently, those of you that follow me, the juries, okay, putting something in front of a jury, no matter how good your case is still no guarantee. A jury can disregard every piece of evidence you put up. They could just have a notion that it's something else. I mean, as example, I'll point to the Karen Reed trial. We have jurors coming out of that trial actually saying they thought that he went in the house, yet no evidence was ever put forward that showed he went in the house. And actually, the timelines actually made it physically impossible. But jurors are actually out there saying that that they believed he went in the house. Where'd they get that from? Like, juries can get notions, and they can believe what they want to believe, and they could actually, take the evidence and just not understand it or just choose to disregard it or just not want to take it into consideration. So it's iffy, okay? And things can happen during a trial. What if there was a mistrial? All of this. And the removing of the death penalty, I understand how strongly the families feel about the fact that Bryan Kohberger, after taking 4 lives, is going to be able to actually still be breathing. But here's the reality of the death penalty in Idaho. The last time they tried to actually perform the sentence as required, it failed. It was by lethal injection. It was many years ago. I think it was 8, 9 years ago. Okay. And they've had a hard time getting the drug. So the state of Idaho put the firing squad into place to cover that up. But that person who it failed on had already been, it's been 30 years since he was sentenced. So it's like a life sentence already. And the appeal process itself. I mean, you don't want him to be around. He's not going to be pleasant. I get it. You want an eye for an eye. But here's the deal. Like, if they did get the death penalty, everybody in Idaho, including the victims' families, would be paying for the attorneys to appeal it. It would be 10 years, if not more, in appeals and the process before he even was going anywhere with it. The outcome would be pretty much the same. Whether it be a life sentence and he's sitting there, or it's going to be the death sentence, he'd be sitting in jail the same amount of time. And you'd have to go through all the ups and downs of the appeal process. And what if it got overturned? Why put the families like through that? I understand like how they feel, and my hearts are with them. It really is. Like, it doesn't feel like good justice. And I think most of that is coming from how they were treated by the people in charge. If they had been given the consideration of a conversation and some smooth feathers or anything, instead of being disregarded, I'm sure it would be different. No one wants to be disregarded, okay? And especially in this situation, it just makes the pain worse, and it doesn't feel good. But that's what I'm going to say about that. Like, because we're still going forward. July 23rd is going to be the sentencing. We're going to do it. If it's live, we're going to do it. I want to hear the victim statements. I think the best that we can do for the families is to listen to them in their impact statements and put that all out there and give them the consideration that they need and feel for them. This is their part of justice, and we're putting it out there along with everything else, because, you know, we always mention Bryan Kohberger's name, but he is not the most important part of this situation. Okay. The victims are. It's Kaylee and Maddie and Ethan and Zaina and all of their families and everyone who loved them. And that's our focus from now on, right? We're going to go through the plea. He guilty. He doesn't have to allocate exactly and give them the piece of exactly why or anything. He just pled guilty. His actual statement of guilt is very clinical, to say the least. Thank you for putting their names in the chat, Pete. And we should continue to do that with every segment we do on this case from now on, because that's where our focus is in now that he's pled guilty, you know. Maybe that's a very good question. How is he going to live in jail? If it is solitary for life, then maybe, or he will get access to other people like the Sky and the Mill. I know it that if he was on death row, it would be 23 hours of confinement and then 1 hour of freedom. But here's what I have to say about that. In Idaho, Lori Daybell is the same. And she says that she has very limited free time. That's why she couldn't do her appeal. So even with a life sentence, I believe that the confinement is pretty severe. Okay. So I could check that out further. And the next time we talk about Kohberger, I will make a note to have a better answer for you on that. I don't think it's going to be good for him to be in general population. As it is now, he's being considered a serial killer. There was more than one. And he's actually, it's not being looked at very kindly. And, well, I understand how, you know, the parents of Kaylee Gonzalez, particularly Steve Gonzalez, feels. I understand this eye for an eye concept. I understand the pain. Let's just put it this way. I can empathize with the pain that he's in. But and then again, I don't really think it's a smart idea to publicly proclaim that you're making arrangements for the demise of this man. I don't want anybody to take that out of context, what he's saying. Just remember he's in pain, and don't judge the families, and don't be saying anything. Like, there's no way any of us know what that pain feels like. Thankfully, we should all be grateful we don't know the pain and can't feel the pain that they're in. And all I ask is that don't be judging them on anything that they're saying or doing right now. Let's go through those victim impact statements. Let's give them the voice that they need. They need to get all of this out. And they should not be held on this word or that word or the other word. I see a lot of stuff going back and forth about what they're saying publicly, and had they been given consideration, if they had been given consideration for how they feel, if they had been actually even spoken to, instead of just treated like a list, just names on a list, and they got an email, that had to be so insulting when you're in that kind of pain. So just keep all that in mind. Let's not put too much credit on all these statements going out there. Let's not put too much weight, so to speak, on it. Okay, I for one am not going to judge them for anything they say during this period. Exactly, it was like an email, Pete, from what Mr. Gonzalez said, and from what one of the other parents had said. They actually did just receive an email. They didn't receive any phone calls or anything of that nature. Which to me, if that is true, I haven't heard from the other side yet, but if that is true, yeah, well, I'm not going to get on Hitler for mispronouncing her name, because honestly, Pete, I have done it repeatedly during this thing. Yeah, I always, say I say it incorrect a lot. Okay, but it is incorrect. I will correct one statement that's been made. There are people on the socials saying that George Hitler did not say to the two women, Maddie and Kaylee, that he didn't refer to them in the statement that he was saying about a human being, that he didn't say that about them. And that's not true, because if you go back and even play my video, he says the exact same thing about each charge for the murder of each victim, including a human being, is in there. So that's being misstated, and that's not fair. Like, the situation is tough enough, people. Don't be getting on this gossip train, this hype train, this abuse train, and let us not re-victimize the victims in this case in any shape or form. Let us not put gasoline on the fire. It's bad enough. It's bad. It hurts bad enough. They're in enough pain. They don't need this. Okay. And I, for one, am not going to tolerate it, like at all. Okay. And here we need to have sympathy for them. Okay. I don't think George Hitler did anything incorrect. I know, I say it wrong all the time, but to actually act like George Hitler is trying to disrespect, I get that. I know that George Hitler came off strong when he said that he wasn't going to tolerate interference with his decision. That's a judicial thing. All judges are like that. That's not any prejudice to the family or anybody else. And we don't know that he was talking about the family. We know from experience doing true crime, the last couple of cases we actually covered, where people are freaking off the chart with the way that they just overextend the boundaries and feel like they got something to say, they're going to go right to them. They were contacting prosecutors, they were contacting defense attorneys, they were contacting judges. So it could have been from the true crime community itself, people that are on the sidelines. I don't think he was speaking to the families directly, because if so, I don't think that's right. But I also know that you can't contact the judge. You can't. You have to contact the prosecutor's office. But I understand if they did, because of how they felt about not being talked to by the prosecutor's office. And let me just tell you, the prosecutor's office got enough people on that team that somebody could have actually spoke to them. I understand, Pete. I'm with you. I feel it's not right also. I don't like the way that they were actually held. And now they only had a day and a half to show up for the plea, and the sentencing is now on the 23rd, and I do hope that the families could get there. And the prosecution should be helping with arrangements to get the family there if they're in need. They should be doing that. Victim advocacy. This is what should be happening, and I hope that it is. I really hope that it is. But that's all I have to say. Can you guys hear the thunder in the background? Like I'm trying to filter it out the best that I can, but let's just like, I hope I'm not too loud. Let me just try that filter. Because wow, it just lit up the room, right now. But yeah, I'll put the filter on. Let's see if you hear the next clap there. But you might be hearing your own thunder, Pete. Like, you're not that far from me, so Mrs. Cassandra's very far from me on the other side of the country, and she doesn't hear it. Oh, okay, great. Oh, thank you, Mippy. Thank you, guys. Anyway, I'm very glad you're all here. Hey, welcome, Janae. Been a while. Good to see you in the chat. All right, so let's move on from Kohberger. I've got one quick thing on Diddy. Okay, let's do Diddy real quick. Did I put up a picture of Diddy? Yes, I did. Look at that. I was a good girl today. Look at that. It was so black at 4:00, Pete. I was like, should I cancel? And I'm like, hell no, I'm not canceling. I'm not. I've had a day. I've had some stuff going on. Like, but nope, I wasn't canceling. I wanted to get this done. Anyway, Diddy. Diddle disappointment. Yes, Diddy's a bit of a disappointment. We do have a guilty verdict. Okay, so we are going to have a sentencing. However, Mr. Combs got some disappointing news today. I think that he would have rather sentencing was moved up because he didn't get bail to get out. Although they tried. Okay, but hey, nope. The judge in both the prosecution and the defense decided that date that Judge Submaranian had put out there on when the verdict came through, which was October 3rd, that's staying. He's not getting sentenced till October 3rd. There will be victim impact statements, blah, blah, the whole thing. Okay. Well, yeah, he has to sit his butt there. Of note, when they were actually talking about letting him out on bail, and I think we discussed this last week, but I'm just going to reiterate, Judge Submaranian made that quote, like, listen, while he was in there, he was doing witness intimidating. Like, I've got enough motions filed on all his activities and the crap that he did. He's violent. He's abusive by his own admission. And then the judge read back every time the defense admitted it to the jury and on the stand that he was violent, that he had done things he wasn't proud of, all of this other stuff. Like, yup. So the judge was like, by your own statement, and you want me to let him out before all this? No, he's not getting out until sentencing. Okay, because he is getting a sentence. So why let him out? Why? So that he can cause more trouble? He didn't. Listen, let's be honest. Let's be frank. Let's be whatever. let's be the bear just laying it down. That man didn't behave while he was in there facing all of these charges. He did all kinds of bullshit on the phones and this and that. He just acted like he was above it all anyway. You think this judge is going to let him out to do all that in public before he locks him up again? Hell no. Hell no. You can't trust that man. Okay? And yeah, I know they didn't get him on RICO, which for the life of me, I can't understand. Because whether you believe the women or not, whether you believe they were in consensual relationships and they're really just trying to get a pay deal, how the hell do you not get RICO when he used company funds to pay for his drugs and he had everybody that worked for him buying the drugs? That's illegal right there. Right there, that's RICO. And how do you not, when you got proven documentation of blackmail, emails that said that he blackmailed over the videos, and the parents of Cassie Ventura sending the money to him Then she comes back to him and he gives the money back. And it went through company. So how do you not get RICO? Like, I don't understand these juries. Like, I just, I'm going to start running. I'm going to be a little satirical here. Don't take this seriously. But I do feel like there's a need for me to start doing a jury 101 on how to actually open your ears and listen to what's going on and explain these charges before they actually get to this deliberation. And I thought that the prosecution did a great job of explaining the charge and how they proved every charge. I don't know. I think they were more worried of the fact that the women might have been trying to get money out of him, or it might have been sour grapes. I don't understand. I really don't. But it's the second trial in a row that I just left me with more questions than answers at the end of it. I thought we went to trial to get the answers. I mean, that's how it's always been before. It's what I love about the process. And in both cases, I ended up scratching my head so hard, like it's shaking my head so hard it could have just fell off. I don't understand, and I don't think we ever will. I don't. But that's all I got to say about that. Sit your butt down there, Mr. Combs. You're going to need to wait till October, and we'll see you then. We'll see you then, and we'll talk about it then. Unfortunately, oh. There's some rumor, I don't know if it's true yet. I saw a little bit that Joe Sumerian may let the victim's statements in the sentencing actually be a thing. But we'll have to see about that. I don't know. I don't know how he's going to do that. But listen, with all the sensationalism, the Astrogride, the baby oil, all of that stuff, the calling it freak offs, calling it King's Night, whatever. All of that means nothing to me. That wasn't the part that was illegal. The part of illegal was in the RICO thing. In the witness intimidation alone should have got him like there on RICO, using paid employees of Bad Boy Entertainment. Freaking KK, Christina Cormick, knowing everything that's going on, and she's second in command of all of his business empires. A RICO enterprise is a business empire put together, and you actually get your personal needs satisfied, whatever, in an illegal manner. And I saw illegal activity through that testimony repeatedly. I don't know about you guys, but I saw it. I think they documented it well with the accountant and all that other stuff, but hey, it's just me. I mean, Diddy's just lucky I wasn't on that jury. Because I, happen to know I can be very persuasive. I would have been held out going, until you all get your heads out of your butts and look at the information, the actual information we were given, I ain't changing nothing. It would have been a mistrial for sure. I know, Mrs. Cassandra, I heard about that. The judge actually told him to stop looking at the jury like that. The judge is just, listen, the judge has got his number, believe me. The judge has his number. Yep. Absolutely. Hey, Karen, welcome. Janae, I feel you. I really do. All right. Oh, my goodness. All right. So I got those two done. Now let's get to the meat of this thing. Like, I got some stuff. I have so much tonight, everybody. I'll be time stamping this until the cows come home today. I'm gonna be up late. All right. Everybody remember him? James Craig? And we're going to start with him. Not that I really want to, because this man drives me crazy. First of all, every time he's supposed to have a hearing, and then I can't find the hearing, and I can't find the update on it. It's out of Arapahoe County in Colorado. It's another Colorado case. And you know what? He's definitely, he got some charges on him. This man is also one of those that gets behind bars on his original charge and then just cannot stop. He just cannot stop with everything. He's got even more charges on him. All right. There was a hearing recently, and a lots to do in regards to this. Okay. we've got a lot of limited public statements that came out. There's like a pseudo ruling in there for not allowing public statements on all of this. But basically, James Craig, this is the guy who's facing first degree murder charge for his wife, Angela Craig. He's facing a maximum penalty of life without parole if he's convicted. And it's for poisoning his wife, the one with the breakfast smoothies. And he actually ordered everything through his dentist's office. It was a mess. There's a lot of evidence there. Okay. But then while he was in jail, he goes and solicited to commit murder of one of the detectives of the case that was actually finding the evidence against him. And that is up to another 48 years. Okay. And now these were allegations that were made in jail he actually was hiring somebody who was an inmate with him, and he was going to hire him when he got out to go do this deed. Insane. Absolutely insane. Then he goes and he gets inmates to talk to people on the outside, and he starts to talk to people on the outside for solicitation to commit perjury, trying to make up a false suicide narrative with people, trying to hire women to say that they were in affairs with him and try to push that Angela was going to commit suicide because he was having so many of these affairs, and that he talked to them about how his wife was suicidal. I kid you not. He used the prison mail system to contact them, and he writes it all out what they want them to do, and doesn't really remember that everything coming in and out of the jail is mail. I mean, listen, right now, I'm not thinking that this well-educated man who had a private business, and partners and was doing so well, very well educated. He's a dentist, that takes a lot of schooling and all. But talk about no freaking common sense. Not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. Never trust the inmates. And how do you not know your mail's not being read? But anyway, then there's also solicitation to tamper with evidence. Okay, 2 to 6 years. He forged suicide notes and planting of evidence and started messing with stuff. Okay, his total exposure in this trial is like 60 years life plus an additional 60 years, as if they could make it. They're going to make the corpse serve an additional 60 years. I don't know. Well, that's not including any of the aggravators or consecutive sentencings. But you know what? That's not even the most of what's going on with this case. Not even. I kid you not. Okay, so starting from the beginning. Back in November, let me see. Well, first let me start with recently. Okay, we've got jury selection coming up on the 10th. All right. And then we have opening statements on the 14th. And the good news is Arapahoe County has decided to air the opening statements, the closing statements, and the verdict in this case. So on the 14th, we're supposed to have opening statements, and we are going to try to get that out and do that live with you all. I know we like this kind of stuff. And this man, this should be interesting. And I want to hear this case, okay? Because we've actually got it documented. They have proof of the arsenic. They have proof of all of the illnesses that she went through. They have statements and everything. They've got the drugs, the stuff that he used to poison her coming through the dentist's office, him acting all weird. His own partners are testified and gave statements against him. It's a mess. He was having an affair with another orthodontist or dentist who actually, while his wife was in the hospital, came to visit him, and he had her in the house. This man has 6 children with this woman, with Angela Craig. And for all good acquaintances, there really wasn't anything going on. I mean, there were conversations back and forth, stress on both sides, problems in the relationship. I mean, there was issues, obviously. But poison your wife? And then all of the stuff afterwards, like, I don't know what happened to that man. Well, he don't look or act like the dentist pictures from before, and you look at the advertising for his dental practice, it is him talking, doesn't seem anything like this guy that we see now, it's like so crazy, so damn crazy. Okay, so back, okay, a couple of days before jury selection, well, a week before jury selection, actually, on July 2nd, one of his attorneys stepped down. And the reason they stepped down is because they were arrested the day before. His attorney, Mr. Wernick, was arrested sitting on his front steps while his house burned down. He was arrested on 2 counts of arson. Okay. And well, I'm gonna show you what the actual people said about this, because this is the second attorney, and we'll get into the other one in just a second. Well, Mr. Wernick, who's the picture down there, the release at this time of the affidavit could result in disclosure of information that could result in destruction, disposal, or secreting evidence and tampering with identified and unidentified witnesses, which could jeopardize the ongoing investigation. Further, release of the information could result in harassment of a witness and jeopardize a jury trial scheduled to begin July 10th of 2025. That came from the district attorney's motion into the release of the information on what was being charged against Mr. Wernick in his stepping down of July 2nd and everything he said about it. Okay. There was another statement released about Mr. Wernick's mental health and how being a defense attorney is actually a very difficult thing. And this is just another situation to where sometimes the facts of the case can be, well, that kind of overwhelming. All right. And the reason that I bring that up, first of all, the trial did not get dismissed because actually Mr. Wernick's wife, Lisa Moles, is still on the case. And there is another attorney. Her name is Ashley. Oh, yeah. Where is the name? Oh boy. Sorry about that. Anyway, it'll come up in a second or two, and we'll get to it. Well, there are still the 2 attorneys. All right, the new county. They're both through the public defender's office, the husband and wife team, and the wife still being on there did not step down. Mr. Wernick has been arrested and actually has another person with her, this other attorney that I'll get the name for you later. So there's no reason, the judge doesn't see any reason to postpone, and it wasn't. They didn't even ask for it to be moved. This has been moved several times because of all of these other charges against him and because of all the other. I mean, he actually was trying to contract for the actual murder of Detective Olson of this case, who is one of the primary witnesses against him in regards to gathering evidence into the initial investigation. Nope, he didn't do anything as it burned. He actually was sitting on the steps when they got there, and the house was burning down behind him. He was sitting there. He's obviously he's actually right now getting, evaluated for mental health and everything. There's something really going on, Yep, his attorney is in trouble at the moment, Mrs. Cassandra. Yep, this one is. Not the rest of them, though. Okay. Yep. So, well, if you'll remember, we had Harvey Steinberg in November, right before trial, when this trial got moved from November. It was going to be going off in the beginning of the year. And Harvey Steinberg actually put in a motion like the week before the trial was supposed to start to be removed from the case because he said the client persists in a course of action involving the lawyer's services that the lawyer reasonably believes is criminal or fraudulent. In other words, he was insisting on trying to make Mr. Steinberg, who is an upstanding person, he has a great reputation in defense attorneys, to do stuff that was just not legal. Okay. The client insists upon taking action that the lawyer considers repugnant or with which the lawyer has a fundamental disagreement. And that probably has a lot to do with the falsifying of suicide notes, trying to disparage the victim, his wife, Angela Craig, trying to say falsities, and trying to actually procure witness statements for hire that are false, in perjury. and putting false information into the court system. And Mr. Steinberger wasn't having it. He's not going to be any part of that. So he stepped down, and they hired this other team, Wernick and Moles and Miss Ashley. I'll just say, I can't recall her last name right now, and Miss Ashley, and they took over after that. They got a continuance, Then they filed motions trying to say that, well, prosecutorial misconduct, because, well, I'll just tell you this, you can't trust any inmate statement. Like, you can't use an inmate against me. Like, you just can't do that. You're trying to give him a deal, and he's not facing charges, and he's just setting me up. Well, that's how it goes in jail. Of course, he's going to give the statements. If you actually tried to hire him, he is actually going to try to get a deal out of it so that he doesn't get charged with the conversation, because remember, things get recorded. Who knows? They could have even heard this conversation depending on where it was. Anyway, the James Craig decided his attorney should go after them for that. But not only that, then they tried to get the whole thing. Well, you can charge me for this, but it should be separate from my original charges, and I shouldn't have to face this during trial because it's too damn prejudicial. Because if you tell the jury what I was really up to in jail, well, they're going to think badly of me. I kid you not. I kid you not. Like, that is what they tried to do. Yup. And damn. This man. This man has all the gall, But I don't envy the women that are defending him and going through jury selection with him. This is going to be one hell of a case. And like I said, we are definitely going to do the opening closing statements in the verdict when it does for the file. That's the most that we can do live, but we will be doing updates. This trial is slated for jury selection on July 10th, in just a couple of days, and it is actually going to go with opening statements on July 14th, and it is supposed to go for at least till August 1st as far as what they have for witnesses. Some of the witnesses that are all included are the partners from the practice. There is a lot of detectives and everything that are involved. Let me just see. I was just going over all of the I have her name. It's Ashley Whittam. It's Lisa Fine Moses and Ashley Whittam. There you go. I'm sorry, Ashley. I didn't remember your last name. Okay, so Miss Fine Moses, Lisa Fine Moses, and Miss Whittam are going through it, and they are definitely bringing forward all that they can to try to give him a good defense. But man, it's not going to be easy. Okay, the judge of the record is Judge Shay Whitaker. She has actually put this forward to trial. She's not actually going to allow a continuation based on Mr. Warnick's arrest. And Mr. Warnick just asked to be removed the day after, and she allowed that. He's out. But he has adequate defense. Okay. She also decided that she was going to let the information of the other charges go through. It is not basically she said it without setting it. If you don't want the jury to know what you were up to, then maybe you shouldn't have did it, because you're actually charged with it. This is not actually a prior act. This is not something from your past that we bring up to be prejudicial to you. This is not going to be Rule 404B anything. This is an ongoing charges that you're facing, and of course they're going to be able to bring witnesses against you in regards to it and show the evidence of how you committed those crimes. Now, listen, if you think the crimes are too prejudicial to you, sorry, not sorry, but you're getting charged with them. So you are going to have to, the jury's going to hear all about it. There's no way to keep this out. We're not separating this. You did this about this case. You actually attempted to hire on murder of the lead detective in this case. You actually tried to tamper with witnesses and to actually hire witnesses and procure false information and suicide notes and perjured yourself and actually messed with the evidence in this case. So of course it's all relative. Of course it's all the same case. Of course it's all staying in the story. Now, all of those words that I used, Were not her exact words, but that's the gist of it. That's the gist of it. Because I don't get her own words. This case is sealed. They didn't give us her words, just the results. Okay. Janae says, I've been to law school. Ethics are really a sliding scale depending on the practitioner. You know what? I saw that in a couple of recent trials. You don't have to tell me. Like, yep, Janae, I get it. I get it. He's definitely fighting his demons. That's sad, though. Hope he gets help. And I feel James is crazy enough. He probably doesn't want to defend him. I think so. I think this case was just too much. This is a second attorney that just had to walk away. I don't know what it was all about, but there's a lot of pressure here. And you know what? I don't think it's easy. Like, if you're a defense attorney, you have to really believe in the justice system, because you do have to defend to the best of your ability a person you may know is guilty. You still have to defend them, give them the best case, scenario, to do what you got to do. And a lot of times the defendant is pushing you to do things that you just don't think are right. Like, that they're guilty and they're trying to do this, that, and the other thing. And disparaging the victim in these cases and, making it worse for the victim families is distasteful. It's hard. You have to have a strong belief in why our justice system is this way. And that when they are convicted, you want a solid conviction, that they got a fair trial and there's no doubt. Okay. And there's belief in that conviction can sometimes be contrary to your emotional reaction to a man like James Craig. I mean, to put it bluntly, these attorneys are looking in the face of evil and having to defend it. That's my opinion. I know that doesn't sound very neutral. That doesn't sound like I'm waiting for the evidence to be, put into to a court of law. I am. I'll wait. I want a good trial. But the stuff that's going on in this case, the things that this man has done, allegedly, it gets hard. I mean, I can understand why defense attorneys crack. I can. And I hope that Mr. Wernick is getting help. And I hope that it's not anything serious. And I hope he makes a great comeback. I hope he can gather his life around it, And that's all I really have on that. Well, we've got more coming up. Allowing two lawyers to withdraw from a case is really prejudicial to the defendant. Well, in the first, and I get that, Janae, but I don't think they had any choice in this case. You can't have somebody from jail defending somebody in jail. And as far as the first one, when an attorney tells you that they think the client is asking them to do something illegal, you cannot make them defend him. I mean, obviously, we're not going to know the details. All of those affidavits are sealed. Because of client-attorney privilege, Mr. Steinberg, he can't even say exactly what it was without breaking confidence. I guess he could say to the judge in chambers, but he can't make it public record. That's for sure. And it does look very prejudicial. I don't think the jury will know about the removal of the first attorney or the second attorney. That will not be allowed. You're right. That will not be allowed to come up in front of the jury. We all know about it. It's prejudicial to us. Oh, you could talk. No problem, Janae. Well, I don't think that it will come in front of the jury, the removal of the attorneys. They're only going to see the attorneys that are representing him now. They're not going to know anything on the history of the case, at least if jury selection is done appropriately. And it's not going to come in that way. Because you're right. If the jury heard that, damn, would that be totally, totally prejudicial? Yeah, it would. That's why they don't usually let you discuss it in court. Yeah. All right. So let's go on to the next one. Goodbye, Mr. Craig. Okay. Let's talk about Courtney Clenney for a minute. She did have her hearing, okay, in June, and she had filed that motion to disqualify the whole prosecution team from the whole department in Miami-Dade prosecution. They were all going to be out because that lawyer, the one prosecutor stepped down. This is all in regards to the laptop in that the prosecution, one person from the prosecution team, may have seen correspondence between Courtney Clenney's parents and Courtney Clenney's attorneys. Okay, whole big deal. Okay, the judge, Judge Laura Cruz, she had said that particular prosecutor would have to testify about and actually sit for a hearing and give evidence as to what they saw. And once that was known, he stepped down. He doesn't want anything to do with the case. They actually pulled everything. The prosecutor's office showed it to the judge, Judge Cruz, that they had put up a wall as far as information. The case is sealed. Only the prosecutors working on the case can get to it. They didn't see any of this information prior. It was all shut down before it was entered, that none of that evidence was coming into the trial because it could be deemed as attorney-client privilege, and the judge wasn't having it, so nothing from that is coming in. None of those conversations or any of it. But then Courtney Clenney's attorneys tried to say that it was prejudicial. The whole damn department needs to be excluded from the case. Well, you know what? After thinking about it for a while and after hearing opening arguments, from both sides just a few weeks ago, Judge Laura Cruz, she decided, nope, denied. They can keep the case. They've made sufficient ways that nobody else will hear. Like, he's not going to get any information. They're not going to hear any information from the prosecutor that stepped down. There's enough of a separation there. They did not see any of the prejudicial information. So there's no reason to exclude everybody in the whole damn department. Because what it would have done is delay this case again unnecessarily. We still don't have a trial date set for Courtney Clenney, but I do believe that in August 20th, okay, we set another status set. I do believe we're going to go over scheduling. They will go over the release of discovery back and forth to see that everything's on track. And I do hope that finally, now that this issue is solved or settled, that we will definitely get some trial dates. We'll get a schedule of pre-trial conferences in when the trial and jury selection will actually happen, because it's about time. I mean, we've seen some stuff with this case. We've had demonstrations of pig carcasses and knife throwing. Like, we've had her parents arrested in Texas over a laptop that they turned in. And then we've got all of these accusations of prosecutorial misconduct and blah, blah, blah. The man can't help it if he opened up the laptop and he saw the emails. And then, and he admitted he saw them and he stepped down. And that's the end of that. But they are, as good defense attorneys will, trying to use everything they can to get the best trial, get the best information for court, try to get the whole thing removed from this whole prosecution team in Miami-Dade, like move it to another area. But hey, what are you going to do, right? Hopefully this case is going to move forward. It's been too long. The victim in this family, Christian Abunzali's family deserves to get this moved forward. They've just been holding a stasis. They also have a civil suit against Courtney for wrongful death, because she does admit that it probably her actions that killed him, but she says it was self-defense. Well, there's a civil action. The family is suing, and they have to wait until this trial is over actually to move forward. That's usually what happens with civil cases. It's probably in their best interest to wait until this trial is over, because if they get a conviction on the murder charge, then, well, that's going to go very well for the wrongful death, isn't it? All right. So that's my update on Courtney Clenney. Let me just check and see if you've got questions. Well, nobody has any questions about her. That's good, because there's really not much you can question about this one. All right, so let's see what we have next. Oh, Mr. Larry Millete. Okay. Well, with Larry Millete, the thing with Larry Millete, okay, is that, well, everybody was saying he was having his trial was set for this month, actually. And it was for quite some time. It keeps getting moved. This is like, we're going on, oh my gosh, this has been going on for so long, years. Okay, we're on 5th year for this one. Well, Larry Millete is accused of murdering his wife, Maya. Okay. This is a case where we don't have a body. She's been missing since the day of. They have evidence, okay, but it's been a mess, okay. Most of the mess back and forth has been a lot of delays and everything in regards to the custody of the children who were with his parents, and he wasn't allowed. He was violating court orders for video and audio consultations with them. He was violating it left and right. Um, his Maya's actually sister does have custody of the children now. There was appeals going back and forth. Apparently he has a lot of help on his side of the family with helping to violate these orders. He was not allowed to have any audio contact with them or video contact because he was violating. So while the appeals were going on, he was allowed to write letters back and forth. But now that the appeal is over, he's not even allowed to do that. He's got a no contact order with these children. He's allowed to talk to anybody else he wants, which is part of the problem, because just recently the judge had to intervene because his aunt visited him and gave over letters from the children. Okay, and was transporting letters back and forth. And he was having conversations with family members, telling them specifically what to tell the children. In what this is because the children were in the house at the time of the incident. This is actually an informal way of witness intimidation. And they're worried about the prosecution team, and Maya Millete's family is worried that he is doing undue influence on the children in regards to testimony and etc. And it is true because they have found quite a few statements that could lead to that. Okay. Now, it doesn't help when the grandparents and the aunts and are helping him to do this. I do, your family's going to support you. I get that. But you should not be actively supporting a prisoner or an alleged criminal in this charge, somebody charged with a crime, to actually go against the judge's orders in family court orders, in protection orders in a case. It doesn't look good, especially if they decide to actually bring this up. If they decide to bring this up in the court, how bad is this going to look? Okay. Well, there is so much going on. Okay. So much going on. We had the original attorney, Miss Martinez, actually stepped down like last year the year before that, in 2023, I believe, because he wouldn't pay her enough. She was a private attorney. He gave her $250,000. Okay. And she didn't even do any work on the case. The new attorneys who are through the public defender's office have actually filed a bar complaint against Martinez that she charged him all this money and didn't do the work and never would justify where the money was from. She would tell him and the family that they needed the money and access for all of this so she could travel internationally to get witnesses, which she never did any supporting documentation or billing on. Okay, so previous attorney Martinez is in a bit of trouble. I mean, the judge wasn't very happy with her during the pretrial, which it was on my channel. If you look into the playlist, I did cover that in the evidence and everything that was brought forward. And she just wasn't doing a great job. And the judge was really getting annoyed with her a lot. Not really helpful to Mr. Millete. And then to find out that she's fleecing him on top of that. Unfortunately, with his cultural background, the family felt that she was a figure of authority and actually gave in to her and gave her access to his accounts. And she got the money. All right. So we got delays with new attorneys coming forward. Well, now we got even more issues going on. The trial, since the new attorneys have taken over and it's finally coming forward, it was moved from this July. It was moved to January of 2026. It's still scheduled for January. It's going to be on. But the new thing that came up in our pretrial conference for July 7th, that just happened yesterday, was that now the attorneys are going to file to move the venue. They want to move it out of Chula Vista. The Millete's new attorneys told the court that they'll file a motion later this month to move it to a different courthouse within San Diego County, but their aim is to ensure that it receives a fair trial, that there's undue pretrial publicity, there's potential jury bias, it's not going to be fair. And we have to wait and see what the judge is going to do. It hasn't even been filed yet, but during this trial where they talked about whether they had their discovery and all of this, they said that they're going to be funding. So we have to find out once they file it. Of course, the judge can't rule on it right away. Okay. The new attorneys are Leanne Sabatine and Colby Ryan, and they're from Virtus Law Group. Okay. And like I said, they have actually filed a bar complaint against the previous attorney, Martinez. She was actually discharged in October of 2023 from the case. But when they filed the bar said they can't even look into it until criminal charges are filed. Like it has to be an investigation. They have to actually have an actual criminal investigation into Martinez and her and what happened with the Millete family and Larry Millete and whether they were defrauded of this money because it was so much money. So they're not going to do anything with the bar for sanctions or anything of that until this investigation is over. And unfortunately, that's all going to be sealed, so it doesn't prejudice the case. Okay, we're not going to hear very much about it at all. Okay, the next hearing will be in August of 2025. I don't have the actual date yet, but that will be the change of venue hearing. We don't have the date because they don't have the motion on file yet with the judge, so we can't even schedule the actual formal date. But he did say it would be. She did say it would be in August. Okay, and we'll have to see. That'll be the next significant hearing in this case as we wait until January 2026 for this actual trial to commence. So we'll be keeping you updated on these, but it's going to be very interesting because a lot of the information is circumstantial. Remember, this is Larry Millete. This is the guy who paid for supernatural services through witchcraft to make his wife come back to him when she said she was going to be leaving him, to make her fall madly in love with him again. And when that didn't work, to actually cause her illness and all this other stuff. Like he was actually contacting and paying money for this to online services. It's kind of wild. He traveled a lot in the vehicle, in his van. They have him. What happened was basically Maya Millete came home from work, went into the house, her phone and everything else. She never was heard from again. And he was home at the time. So were all the kids. The only one who left after that was Larry Millete into the van with one of the children and was gone for the whole day. The kids were in the house, but they said mom was locked in the room. Dad said, "Don't disturb mom." So I'm like, whatever. Like it's rough. We're going to hear some pretty disturbing conversations with the kids and all. They are part of the case. It's very unfortunate. They were all under the age of 15. There's 6 of them at the time of the crime. Some of them are adults now. Well, it's going to be a rather emotional case. I really feel for the family. The families are split. The children are in horrible situation. Their mother is gone. Their father claims to be innocent and adores them, and actually had a good relationship with all his children prior. There was no complaints about his parenting, and the children all adored him. So it's got to be very conflicting and difficult for them in general. Well, that is going to be our update on that one. Yep. Actually, poor kids is right, Mr. Cassandra. And you're not kidding. It's actually crazy. And Janae, you're right. It's not all about him, but he certainly thinks so. Actually, he needs to leave those children alone by the court order. It doesn't look very good for him to keep violating it in that way. All right, so any confusion? I know that there was some stuff on the socials that this actual trial was actually still starting in July, but it's not. It's formally moved to January in April. Like I think it was like April of this year. They formally moved it. Like we knew that it was definitely moved, but then when they had the pre-trial, they listed this hearing for July 7th as a pre-trial conference. So it really started the buzz that maybe the trial was still going on, but it's not. It's not. It's definitely in January. So. And I want to see this one come to a conclusion. It is going to be rather difficult for a jury. I mean, there is no body. We know how those go, right? Yeah. But speaking on that, let's get to the next one where Mr. Barry Morphew, unfortunately, the body of Suzanne Morphew was discovered. Okay. Well, it's not for the first trial, okay, which never really happened because the charges got dropped because the prosecution made so many mistakes. It was impossible to go to trial with their case because all the evidence was being thrown out and witnesses weren't allowed to testify because of untimely filing and misconduct by Miss Stanley in the prosecutor's department. I mean, she's been disbarred since then. Charges have been filed on her, and Barry Morphew actually attempted to civilly sue everybody for wrongful accusation, wrongful charging. Okay. Not so. The investigation continued. Once Suzanne Morphew's body was discovered, they tested everything, and Barry Morphew has been charged again. He just had his first hearing, and this is how he. Now, I don't want you to think he smiled like that through his whole hearing, because he didn't. He turned around and looked at his daughter. Only one of his daughters, and I do not know which one it was, did attend this hearing. And when he saw her, that's the smile he gave to his daughter. And then he turned around and faced the charges seriously. He was read his charges. He waived all rights. And basically, it was a very, very quick hearing. Not really much happened. Okay. Suzanne's been missing since 2020. Last she was seen was May 9th, May 10th, or saying that she was vanished riding her bike. Well, there's issues about that since like the bike was found up on a hill with no damage to it, no skid marks, nothing like that. It definitely looks staged. In September of 2023, her skeletal remains were discovered in a shallow grave in Saugatuck County. While they were searching, they weren't even searching for her at the time. There is a site known as the Boneyard, and they were searching for someone else, and they found her. In 2024, they concluded all the autopsy results, and the death certificate was changed to homicide by unspecified means because there was a very powerful chemical, a veterinary sedative cocktail called BAM, which is butyrophenol and azapirone in medetomidine in her system. And unfortunately, Barry Morphew happens to be the only private citizen in all of the area that had access to it. Unfortunate for him, recharged, going to have a trial now. Okay. Not double jeopardy or anything, because when the charges were dismissed, they were dismissed without prejudice back in April of 2022. So on July 1st, we had that little hearing, and he was wearing jail attire. He smiled at one of his daughters. Like he said, he raised all his life, but he didn't enter a plea of not guilty yet. Defense attorneys started out of the box saying, we object to any courtroom recording of any of these proceedings because it'll be so prejudicial and yada, yada, yada. But Judge Amanda Hopkins had already issued a limited media recording order and reserved the rights to challenge access to evidence in the bail amount, which happened. He's on bail. He's got a bail, but it's $3 million cash, no bond. And they will actually look at challenges to evidence in the bail at the next hearing, which is settled for September 2nd of 2025. They will talk about bond terms at that time to see if there's enough evidence, depending on the filings that happen, on whether he'll be out before trial. But that's it. Yeah, Janae, that's it. Like they're painting, like in that affidavit is brilliant. Well, they do show the picture of how his cell phone was pinging all around the house, in that he may have shot her with the dart gun with the BAM in it, and BAM doesn't react immediately, and that she was running around trying to get away from him at the time. Another very disturbing fact that came up was that in the autopsy and the examination of her body, they decided that this is not the original resting place. This is not where she decomposed. That the body was placed there after the fact. The body had been moved. The clothing that was there was not clothing she wore, and shows no actual evidence of decomposition, which means it's also been staged. Okay, the body itself, the bones were bleached. It had no remnants of hair or decomposition. There's no insect infiltration in the area. Like, there's plenty of evidence to show that this is not the original place that the body was laid out to decompose. That the body was moved there after decomposition, you know. But by who? Why would Barry Morphew do something like that? Another thing was the feet were missing. I think that could be because the original place that she was decomposed, perhaps like Peterson, he had put her feet in concrete. After all, he was a landscaping guy. He did all this kind of stuff, building and construction. Like, maybe he put her feet in concrete and had her in water somewhere. I don't know, but I do know that the feet are not there anymore. It makes sense to me that could have been happened. And then, was the body discovered and then placed there, or did Barry Morphew decide to move it there because something was going to happen in the original place? Who knows? But what it did lead to him being recharged, because the truth is coming out. A case that had nothing but 143 pages of circumstantial evidence in the beginning has now come up to a body that's telling the story. And we know when the bodies tell the stories, what happens. It's really hard to go against that evidence. The story that Suzanne Morphew's body is telling is going to be hard for him to go against. I mean, the final line of that indictment that states that the only one who had access to that chemical compound was Barry Morphew. They also went so far as to do the very long testing to show that the actual chemical that was in her body was starting to be metabolized, which means there's no way that the contamination of Bam happened post-mortem. It happened prior, and she was already metabolizing it when she died. They did a great job in that actual indictment. And this is a trial I'm looking forward to. This is one of those cases that I first started talking about on the internet way back when. And I was fascinated by that 140. I'd never seen a 143 page indictment before. And I did this with Jay, and he kept telling me, they don't have a body. Nothing's ever going to come out of it. Too much circumstantial evidence, blah, blah, blah. Then we got the other DNA, blah, blah, blah. But they're not going to be able to do third-party culprit with that DNA because that DNA got tested and those witnesses were checked out. It actually, where those dead DNA went to, it was all checked out. The judge has already raised the flag that if they're going to bring in third party, they're going to need actually evidence of third party to bring it in. And that's standard. They're not going to be able to use the DNA like in the first case to go doubt, because it's all been checked out now. They're going to need something to go against it. So that's right, Janae. The body keeps the score premeditated. It does seem that way. Maybe it does. He had a plan. Exactly. Yep. He had her somewhere else. It does appear that way. I'm just wondering, We also see interviews by his girlfriend after the Shoshana person, Shoshana Dark. She's been making some statements and all. I don't know. There was a lot of shady stuff going on. Remember, there was all this about a package being delivered to the house that they used to have that was sold, and Shoshana sneaking on the property to get it, and all this really weird stuff going on in this trial. Well, as it is, his daughters are supporting him. We don't know what the situation is right now, but through the first trial, they were very pleased. They still, after the charges were dropped, declaring his innocence, saying he was standing behind him. And the grin that he's just showing to his daughter in the courtroom says that they're still pretty tight. There's still going to be support there, Well, I'm interested in following this all the way through. We are going to have limited media coverage, and we're definitely going to be on it for that. Every hearing, as much as we can. But there we go. Let me just check on any questions you guys have. Oh yeah, the body keeps the score. Bessel van der Kolk. You got it there, Janae. Absolutely. But I think that pretty much is going to be that's going to be me wrapping up unless you guys have some questions. I mean, wow, I'm really impressed we got all of that done. We did. But that's your true crime for the week, everybody. Like that's what's been going on. Of course, we're going to have stuff, going on for the rest of the week. We do on the 14th. We definitely going to check into the Craig situation for opening statements. We'll definitely try to get that loud. Or anything else that's going on as far as in the end of July, as far as Kohberger and Lori Daybell, we will be doing both of those as long as they are going to have those sentencing hearings live. We'll be doing those live for you, so you can come and talk about it in the chat. Yeah. So, all right. Circumstantial evidence can be very overwhelming, Janae. I agree. And I have seen circumstantial cases actually do it. Remember, we had the case, Shawnee. Remember Shawnee Crawl, where the body got tossed out because of some misdeed. They didn't wait for the warrant to come through. They busted into the car. So all the evidence in the trunk of the car, which was her body and her cell phone and all of this stuff that would have definitely nailed him, got tossed. But they still convicted Shawnee Lynn Crawl of the murder anyway, without the body, with all of it out. All based on circumstantial evidence, all based on stuff he did prior and after the murder. Yep, and they got him. I've seen circumstantial evidence come. Circumstantial evidence isn't weak evidence. It's just a type of evidence. Okay, like the judge says, it has just as much weight as you're going to put it on. There's direct evidence and circumstantial. That's just how it gets in. Oh, it definitely can lead to stuff. If you put it off of it together, it can lead to the whole story. It's the story that you tell, and if the evidence goes from A to Z with the story, like, it's hard to deny. So, well, on that, everyone, I think I'm gonna call it. I hope you all have a good night, and I'll see you sometime during the week. Uh, for other stuff that's coming up. Well, this was it for the week as far as I have scheduled right now. We're taking a break from library chats on Saturday. Ricker and I will be bringing the 48th law the week after that. We'll be starting on that. And unless anything else huge comes up, that's going to be it for me. But just watch the community tab. I will definitely keep you all updated, but I need a couple of days to handle some stuff in real life. For sure, I'm doing the best, but I wanted to bring those updates to you to settle some of the confusion that's going on with some of the cases. And well, thank you all for being here. Your actual interaction with me is what keeps me doing this. So don't forget to like and share, and please hit that comment section. Questions, comments, anything about these cases that I've covered tonight, or any of the others on the roster, or even if they're not, I want to hear from you. It's the best part of it for me, and I really enjoy it. So thank you so much for the support, whether you're on YouTube or Twitch or Kick. Twitch and Kick are the new platforms I'm trying to build up over there. So if you have an account, go over there and give me a free follow, okay? Hey, Grace, good night to you too, and everyone out there. Have a great night, and we'll see you all again really soon.